Good evening, and we're diving straight into a developing story that has sparked serious controversy across Osun State and raised critical questions about local government autonomy in Nigeria. The federal government under President Bola Tinubu has allegedly withheld approximately 131.5 billion naira belonging to local governments in Osun State for 10 consecutive months, and this is happening despite a Supreme Court ruling that declared such actions unconstitutional and unlawful. Now, let me break this down so you understand exactly what's going on here. Local governments across Nigeria receive monthly allocations from the Federation account, which is essentially the pool of revenue shared among federal, state, and local governments. These funds are meant to be disbursed directly to local government councils so they can carry out their constitutional responsibilities, things like primary healthcare, rural road maintenance, market development, and other grassroots projects that directly affect everyday Nigerians living in those communities. However, what has been happening in Osun State tells a completely different story. According to reports emerging today, the Tinubu administration has been holding back these funds that rightfully belong to the 20 local government areas and 10 area offices across Osun State. We are talking about billions of naira that should have been used to pay workers' salaries, fund community projects, maintain basic infrastructure, and deliver essential services to ordinary citizens at the grassroots level. Instead, these monies have been sitting somewhere for close to a year, while local government workers struggle, projects stall, and communities suffer the consequences. What makes this situation even more troubling is that the Supreme Court of Nigeria, the highest court in the land, already ruled on this exact issue back in July 2024. In that landmark judgment, the Supreme Court declared that state governors no longer have the authority to receive, hold, or control funds allocated to local governments. The court specifically ordered that all local government allocations must go directly from the Federation account to the local government councils themselves, not through state governors who have historically used these funds as political leverage or diverted them for state purposes. This Supreme Court ruling was celebrated across the country because many Nigerians believed it would finally bring true autonomy to local government and ensure that grassroots development would no longer be held hostage by state politics. The ruling was clear, it was final, and it was supposed to be implemented immediately. Yet here we are in January 2026, and Osun State local governments are still crying out that their constitutional allocations have been withheld for 10 months straight. Now, you might be wondering, if the Supreme Court has ruled on this matter, how is the federal government still withholding these funds? That's the exact question many legal experts, civil society organizations, and concerned citizens are asking right now. The situation appears to be creating a constitutional crisis because when the highest court in the country makes a pronouncement and that pronouncement is ignored, it undermines the entire foundation of our democracy and the rule of law. If you are enjoying this breakdown and you want to stay updated on important stories affecting Nigeria and Nigerians everywhere, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on your notification bell so you never miss any of our updates. The impact of this fund withholding on Osun State has been devastating. Local government workers in many councils have gone months without receiving their full salaries. Some councils have reportedly struggled to pay pensioners, leaving elderly citizens who dedicated their working years to public service in severe financial distress. Development projects that were supposed to improve rural communities have been abandoned halfway because there's simply no money to continue the work. Markets that need renovation remain in deplorable conditions, rural roads continue to deteriorate, and basic healthcare centers lack essential supplies and equipment. What's particularly painful for residents of Osun State is that this money belongs to them. It's not a favor, it's not a loan, and it's not subject to anybody's personal discretion. These are constitutional allocations meant for local development, and every month that passes without these funds reaching their rightful destination is another month of suffering for ordinary people who depend on local government services. Political analysts are pointing out that this situation also raises serious questions about the relationship between different levels of government in Nigeria. Some observers believe that despite the Supreme Court ruling, there are still powerful interests that don't want local governments to have true financial autonomy because it would reduce the control that governors and the federal government currently exercise over grassroots politics. Others argue that the withholding might be related to disputes about the legitimacy of certain local government councils or disagreements about democratic processes at the local level. Whatever the underlying reasons may be, the reality on the ground is that communities across Osun State are bearing the brunt of this political and legal standoff. Students in public primary schools maintained by local governments are studying in dilapidated classrooms. Healthcare workers in local clinics are working with inadequate resources, and local government employees are struggling to meet their basic family needs while waiting for salaries that should have been paid months ago. This story also connects to the broader conversation about restructuring and true federalism in Nigeria. Many advocates of restructuring have long argued that Nigeria's over-centralized system of government stifles development at the grassroots level because too much power and resources are concentrated at the federal level. They point to situations exactly like what's happening in Osun State as evidence that without genuine autonomy for local governments, grassroots development will continue to suffer regardless of how many billions are allocated on paper. As this story continues to develop, Nigerians across the country will be watching closely to see how this situation is resolved. Will the federal government release the withheld funds and comply with the Supreme Court's directive? Will there be consequences for those responsible for withholding constitutional allocations? And most importantly, will this finally trigger the systemic changes needed to ensure that local governments can truly function as the third tier of government they were designed to be? What do you think about this situation? Do you believe local governments in Nigeria should have complete financial autonomy, or should there be some level of oversight? Have you experienced similar issues with local government services in your area? Drop your thoughts in the comment section below because we really want to hear from you. And if you haven't already subscribed to this channel, now is the perfect time to do so because we bring you these important stories that mainstream media sometimes overlooks.